Am I tripping, or are new era rappers sexually soliciting our youth? What? Short segment time. This is bullshit. I don't know if you grew up in the same world I grew up in, but we literally had a song called Candy Shop. Were we sexually soliciting our youth at that point? What about Moneymaker by Ludacris? How many songs have we heard from non female artists that talk about literally every single way I could have sex with a fucking woman? I've heard songs incur about rape. I've heard sexually explicit songs. Or sexually explicit. I've heard explicit songs that end up jumping on the topic of if she don't want it, I'ma give it to her. Damn that ass fat. Let me touch that. How we get here though? How we get here? So we're gonna read this, and I'm gonna object to it because I already object to it because it's fucking obvious. It's the obvious reason is because they're women and they're being okay with their sexuality, and that's like telling girls that they can also have sex and it's cool. Like, is hip hop worse off today than previous years? Worse for who? Worse for those age 18 and under. My 80s and early 90s hip hop folks know exactly what I'm talking about. For those 30 plus, almost 30, we are still not a youth, but officially turned into the old heads. That's right, we're now the folks that are blah, 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 blah. The music that they're turning up to in clubs is explicit as it's ever been. That's a lie. Let's make no mistake, though. This isn't a claim to say our era's rappers were not explicit as well. Some of my favorite rappers, I will admit, are misogynistic, but that's a topic for another article. Why the fuck are you bringing up the topic that could counter the whole thesis that you're about to discuss? And then, but that's another conversation. Weak shit. I mean, let's be real here. Let's do it in the Ben Shapiro lights. I mean, let's be real here. I was age 8 when Trina dubbed herself the baddest bitch and bragged that she would sex about 5 or 6 best friends. I was only 14 when Lil Kim fondled her sexual skills in lyrics like, I'll make a Sprite can disappear in my mouth. So yeah, sex and dirty language has been around in hip-hop for years, and it's not just the ladies. Reference Too Short, NWA, or even LL Cool J on the less abrasive side if you want to. I was probably around age 7 when LL rhymed back and forth with a young lady, who many of us don't remember for anything more than appearing as the young but grown woman that rapped about how she was ecstatic about getting her chance to sexually please LL, who she referred to as Daddy throughout the song. It's the year 2021 and sexualization is just as lucrative status as yesteryear. With the added accessibility, sex is everywhere in the fingertips. No matter how close we try to keep the influences of the devils away from our impressionable children, the potential harm that frequent provocative visuals and lyrics is what I want to discuss. Full disclaimer, my views will not always come off as politically correct as some would like, but I will always tell my perspective, which is my truth. Who the fuck told you to write this then? From my perspective, it appears that an apparent agenda to push promiscuous behavior, homosexuality, and provocations of the lens and ears and gates of the youth, which will prove earlier this, in other words, okay, and God, y'all be saying so much shit in these articles. Earlier this year, Nas X, who was named best-selling author, went viral for revealing the world his new body modification with breast implants that are referred to as retail therapy. The revelation left many puzzled as the singer appeared to be attempting to reach children with the release of his book, but then parents began to question the safety of letting their kids read from such author. Rightfully so. Like many Americans, I find myself working from home a lot, play background music. The over-sexualization of women and gender-bending identities that's getting more and more driven and influenced by dominant culture, maybe because these people that could have done without it or maybe not have ever spoke about it now feel free to be able to do so because we're in a more inclusive society. So therefore, you saying that this is like pushing something, watch what your children are looking at on YouTube because they can't ignore it one way or another the same way we couldn't ignore it when we were children, and don't complain about this shit. While Vivo was on Cardi B's Up video and then Megan Thee Stallion featuring the baby's video Crybaby played, I don't want to sound like the old lady in the room, but to say I was outraged would be fitting. Hey, and here's where we get to the point that I probably am gonna disagree with the most. Hey, I am all for grown women opting to have a hot girl summon, women empowerment, women owning their sexuality, but I do take exception to that coming at the expense of our community's youth and innocence. As if that world is so locked that you. As if I don't know heads that was fucking at 14 in 1993. Like, that's such an age. It's literal dumb shit. Like, at this point, it's just dumb shit. Like, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it, and for some reason, you're like choosing to do it anyway. Both videos are super sexual and displays the objectification of women, which is nothing new, but the setting of Megan's video is problematic as it takes place in a children's replica Toy Story. As a result, the message then seems to not be age appropriate, but instead intentionally targeted to a younger demographic, which seemingly is children. That's not true. I make music and I do what I fucking want. If kids like that shit, and when I say kids, I mean like teenagers. If teenagers are fucking with my music, I'm not gonna restrict them. There's a parental advisory at the shit. If your kids are still having access to it, then maybe it's your fault and not mine. Aside from the explicit sexual language on the track, the Quay appearance in the video leads to a deeper yet controversial discussion that has become taboo to discuss within the culture because of the heightened sensitivity surrounding the topic, that topic being the alleged gender by me. Right back, here we are again. I already did this in a piece today, literally an hour ago. That topic being the alleged agenda by media to feminize black men and sexualize women. Now, I'm not here to suggest that LGBTQ representation will alter someone's sexuality, but I do think it is a fair claim or observation to make that a sudden push is apparent. No, it's because they were afraid of being persecuted for who they were by people like you, and now that more and more people are coming out and saying, hey, I exist, now they feel okay and comfortable in doing so, so therefore you will gain more mentions of it. It's not a push, it's the fact that the people now want to have a voice. I'm trying to be careful with my words here, as I've witnessed far too many times people get labeled homophobic for offering differing perspectives than others on the topic. But you can see where that's homophobic, right? However, yes, I do think the images, attempted normalization, and popularization over hypersexuality and fluidity can prove to be harmful to younger demographics. This is not a plea to censor Cardi or Megan, as I realize that sex sells and that grown women are free to do what they please with their art. How do you get that point? But yet you make up this whole thing. This is simply a plea for us adults to be mindful of what we promote, because the kids are always watching an impressionable lens in minds. But it is my right to ask we all be mindful of who is watching us and what type of influence we are leaving. If we all as a culture and community assume that responsibility and mindfulness, we'd all be better off, including our babies. What if we're doing that and this is where we ended up? Terrible. Ladies and gentlemen, Cardi B is not responsible for your fucking child wanting to go out and fuck. She already had that thought in her head. She's just happy that, like, a star also believes in sexual liberation. You suck for even hinting towards something else.